Let us know where you are watching from. We'd love to hear. Just give everyone a few moments. All right, I see folks coming in. If you're just joining, let us know where you're coming from. Don't be scared. Don't be shy. There we go. We got Utah, Canada. Perfect. All right. All right. Well, again, thank you for joining. My name is Nicole Kaysen. I am the event marketing specialist here at Consensus, and I am going to be kind of leading the webinar for today. So this webinar is presented by Consensus, which is the first product experience platform that empowers sales teams to deliver interactive demos, engaging product tours, and immersive simulations, unlocking stakeholder insights, reducing friction in the sales cycle, and accelerating every deal. And you can learn more at goconsensus.com. And before we begin, I would like to invite everyone here to join us for DemoFest X London. It's October 8th. We had a wonderful time at DemoFest X New York City and San Francisco, and we are so excited to be bringing the event across the pond. You can register at demofest.com or the link that I will post in the chat in just a moment. And we encourage you to participate in today's webinar. Our speakers will answer any questions at the close of the event, but you're welcome to post your questions at any time using the Q&A feature, which will be on the right side of your console. And if at any times you're having technical difficulties, you can use the little gear icon at the bottom and you'll get some help troubleshooting. And now I would like to introduce our moderator for today's session, as well as our speakers. So Alex Z is an enterprise account executive here at Consensus, and he is going to be chatting with Jenny Dingus, SVP of Global Sales, and Luke Slan, Canada General Manager of Clio, which is the #1 legal practice management software. And they're going to be talking about how they transformed their go-to-market approach. So in this session, you'll get a behind-the-scenes look at how Clio adopted demo automation to accelerate onboarding, streamline pre-sales, and unlock new levels of alignment across their sales org. So with that, I would like to welcome Alex, Jenny, and Luke to the stage. I'll turn the rest of the time over to you all.
Thank you, Nicole, and welcome everyone. Looks like we have a global audience here, so thank you, everyone. So yeah, as Nicole said, I'm going to be helping Luke and Jenny tell their story about the partnership with Consensus. They've been with us for a couple of years. They are personally one of my favorite clients, so very, very thankful for them. To start, will you guys both just tell me a bit about where you're from, how long you've been with the company, and a bit about what you do for Clio?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Alex, for having us, and Nicole, thank you for the introduction. Hello, everybody. Good morning. If it's morning where you are, I'm Jenny Dingus. I am the head of sales for Clio. We're a cloud-based legal technology company. I lead sales globally and have been at the company for about 3 years, and I'm based in Denver, Colorado.
Awesome. And I am Luke Slan. I am the general manager of Canada, overseeing our market expansion and investment into Canada, leading go-to-market and partnering with R&D. I've been at Clio for 7+ years. I used to lead our SE org, and I worked closely with Alex and the Consensus team to implement Consensus at Clio, and it supercharged our growth. So super excited to be here, and it's great to meet you all. Looking forward to this conversation.
Thanks, both. A little bit about your company. So if anyone who has seen our LinkedIn promotions for Clio, you've seen the word darling thrown around. So we have to let you brag. If you could just tell us a bit about why you guys, without getting into the product or anything specific, brag a little bit about why you guys are a darling.
Yeah, it is a very endearing way to describe our company. It's probably a pretty accurate way. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Clio, we are a vertical SaaS company. we sell our software to law firms. We're a practice management solution and supporting law firms in their entire operations of their firm, from client intake to managing their cases to billing and document management, the whole thing. We're really kind of the last thing that you would rip out if you were closing down your law firm. And what's also unique about us is we're a Canadian tech company, which there are much fewer of in Canada than there are in the States. And we're extremely high growth. We last year raised our Series F funding, which was $900 million in funding and was the largest raise in Canadian history. So we're very proud of what we've been able to accomplish. And even though ironically, I'm not in Canada, a very proud Canadian company.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and I'll just
Anything
tack
to add?
on. Yeah, no, I just tack on that, like, our customers love us. We have a very high NPS score. We built beautiful software that's highly functional, that delivers a lot of value. And over the years, we've become a multi-product company. We've built onto our product layer cake. We started with one product, which was Clio Manage, all the way back in 2008. And today we sell 8 different products across the entire spectrum, from intake to invoice, including payments and AI. And it's been just an awesome evolution to see us really build this vertical SaaS company, not only with more products, but also expanding into new markets, right? We obviously sell into North America, we sell in EMEA, we sell in APAC, and it's just been an awesome journey to experience that growth.
Yeah, it's been awesome to watch. So I've deeply enjoyed my experience with every employee at Clio, and you guys call yourselves Cleons.
That's true, correct?
We do.
At Consensus, we are very proud of our company values. They're not just something you throw on a wall. It was hard for me to believe when I first got here because I came from a big company. But it seems like you guys have a really coherent culture. I'd love to hear, before we get into some of the specifics, just one of your favorite parts about working at Clio.
Well, the culture is definitely an intentional part of our company. We're a very mission-driven organization. Our mission is to transform the legal experience for all. And we do that by empowering law firms to work more efficiently and create a bit of a dent in the access to justice gap that exists today. But internally, our culture is designed to support collaboration, balance, creative thinking, and really make sure that we're not stuck in a world where we're siloed or political in the way that we operate. We really believe in hiring really smart people that are domain experts and then letting them run with what they know best and seeing what we can do to prop them up. Yeah, Luke, anything you would add? It's a beautiful culture. It's really unique.
Yeah, agreed. Just to dovetail off that, I think one thing internally at Clio is there's no egos, there's no assholes, right? One of our values is no doors, only windows, which is really that we don't operate in silos. You can put time in anyone's calendar. Best idea wins. Everyone's there to help you. It's a very collaborative culture. It's really quite refreshing to be able to work with those type of people and know that, it's very much like a meritocracy. Everyone's there to help you. And yeah, I'd say, that's kind of refreshing in this day and age, especially from a sales culture and a sales perspective. So yeah, it's been a great ride.
Yeah, one thing I'll add is that we're a very transparent company. We're a founder-led organization, and we have an incredible founder. His name is Jack Newton. You should follow him. He's awesome. But we still have a company all hands every single week, and we're over 1,000 people at this point. We still share company targets to every single person in the company. So it doesn't matter what level you are, you have access to our targets, and we're not hiding that from people. We want everybody to know what we're rowing towards. And then the cherry on top is we actually bring our entire company together in January for an event called Team Day, where we set our intentions for the year. Everyone knows exactly what we're rowing towards. We have shared company OKRs that we read out on a monthly and quarterly basis. So there's not like, and Clio's not perfect, so let me make sure that I make that clear. There's a lot of work to be done here, but we do have alignment across our team, which helps have productive conversations around our growth strategy.
Awesome. Thank you both. So moving on to some of the specifics, can you tell us a bit, like, this doesn't have to pertain to like, either now or before consensus, but just like in general, what is your go-to-market strategy? Huge question. But yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah, that's a huge question. Okay, let me take that one, Luke. So if you think about the legal space in this market, hopefully those of you listening haven't had to spend too much time with attorneys, but maybe you have for like you're planning a will or working with one of your parents or an elderly. There's a lot of reasons why you would obviously engage an attorney, but when you think about the legal market, most law firms are small, and this is a very SMB motion. Obviously, we've got, there's enterprise level law firms, but there's a lower volume of them. And so our product, our go-to-market strategy, really everything that we do in our operating model is built for scale, because we have to efficiently and effectively go after that long tail of the market, where we're addressing solo practitioners and law firms with 4 or 5 people. And if you think about like 100-person law firm, that's actually an enormous law firm, and that's a very complex sale. So that's our upmarket, at least today, if you will. And so our go-to-market strategy, just to get back to your specific question, Alex, is a very integrated strategy across sales, marketing, operations, and customer success. We work really collaboratively as a single unit and team to make sure that we are servicing all parts of this micro SMB market that we're going after. But really, like, the question that I ask myself every single night is, how do we scale programs? We're not like, we can certainly put people on an airplane and have them go knock on doors and go to market that way. And I think with the emergence of AI, we might actually be doing more of that soon. But right now, it's like, how do we get in front of these people with an inside sales team and give them and demonstrate value in a way that is going to allow our team to move quickly and educate our market on a tool that can be transformative for them without overwhelming them, because lawyers traditionally are not technical buyers. Luke, anything you would add there?
Yeah, that was a major +1. Yeah, I think you nailed it. And I think, it will dovetail nicely into why we actually ended up adopting consensus, which I'm sure we're going to get to.
Yes, of course. So just to kind of clarify, you guys sell into what is like largely into what would be classically defined as an SMB market because of the nature of law firms, as you said. You're very well integrated funnel, but specifically like once they get into the funnel, so marketing does their job, people like get into your funnel. What is the product education process? Like, how do you guys tell a lawyer who's really busy and doesn't know anything about technology, what you do?
Yeah. So the first and most powerful channel we have is our existing customer base. Like Luke mentioned, we have extremely high NPS. We're the leading practice management company or vendor, and lawyers use us and they love us. And so a lot of the education in the market comes from one lawyer collaborating with another one through our Clio for Co-Counsel products. We actually have a product that allows 2 lawyers to collaborate on a case from different firms. We also we're at local events. We have instances where lawyers will leave a firm, break off, create their own firm, and they will immediately embed Clio into their practice. So I think that's like the very first most powerful one. Apologies, my dog gets really excited when there's somebody outside. But then we also have a incredible world-class product marketing organization that is educating through more traditional SaaS channels. We do our own webinar series. And yeah, I think that like one of the things that Luke mentioned is that our go-to-market strategy, because we're vertical, has to be that layer cake strategy, which means we're adding multiple products. So we're in an interesting moment right now where our product is becoming more robust. We are offering even more value to our end users, but it's getting more complicated. And so we're constantly on this tightrope of how do we demonstrate all of this in a way that is going to show them what they want to see without overwhelming them. And Consensus is a piece of that puzzle. I would say there's other components of it, but Consensus is certainly a piece of that puzzle.
Thank you. Okay. I'm now going to rewind. Hopefully the audience has a general idea of who Clio is and like what their motion looks like. If I could, I'd like to rewind to a couple years ago when Luke and I were talking. So Luke, could you tell us a bit about, your company was exploding, you had all this demand. You guys have a relatively fast sales cycle. What was it about Consensus, and what problem were you looking to solve that led you to talk to a sales rep from Consensus?
Yeah, for sure. Great question. So I remember the conversation well. I'm not sure if you do, but it was kind of, meta and eat your own software. You or one of your SDRs sent me a Consensus video on Consensus. And essentially I got to understand the entire platform on demand from the comfort of my living room after I put my kids to bed, the day before our meeting, and I got to understand all the features, value, and benefits that Consensus provides us. And when we got on the call, I had like a light bulb moment. I'm like, this is exactly what our buyers need. So if you think about the legal space, if you think about lawyers, the vast majority of them bill by the hour, right? Time is money for legal professionals. And oftentimes they want to talk to vendors, but they'd rather be billing. So I saw a light bulb moment happen where Consensus was able to offer a video on demand platform, like Jenny mentioned. Lawyers aren't necessarily the most tech friendly or tech adoptive, but they can watch videos and understand a concept rather easily. And the three main problems that we were trying to solve at the time were, one, speed to lead. We're in this micro SMB, super high velocity motion. Two, at the time we were seeing a lot of cancellations or no-shows to our first meetings. So we were trying to solve the gap between like an XDR qualified opportunity converted into an SAO, and then also just improve our win rates. So those were the three big problems that we were trying to solve, and Consensus seemingly had an answer to all of those. And we ran, a pretty comprehensive and sophisticated pilot. The Clio account executives ate it up. The usage was off the charts. We were able to prove, significant movement on those three key KPIs. And then we were able to build a strong internal business case to get the deal across the line.
Yeah, but Luke, you're missing a really critical component, which is you didn't get the deal across the line.
Well, I kind of fast forward to the end.
I think it's important that this audience knows what really happened.
Fair enough. Okay, so what really happened is that we did a pilot and we thought we had the deal done. I think it was like, Alex, it was the end of your fiscal year, most likely. I think it was final hours in January. And we were at the 1 yard line, and it's true, we did not get the deal done. We had to do a restart, and essentially there was actually some pretty crucial lessons learned internally at that time, which is we needed to involve more cross-functional stakeholders to really ensure that this program was going to be a success. This was, a sales-led initiative by me and the SEs and, a lot of the other sales leaders, but we didn't necessarily have the proper buy-in from our RevOps team, from our marketing team, from senior executive leadership. So we did a take two on the pilot, and we were able to go back and really prove the business case and get the deal done a couple months later.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, this transaction became the template for how we build a standard operating procedure around evaluating our vendors. So like just from my seat, what it looked like was every single kind of subgroup had been evaluating their own vendors for their own unique use case. And And that works for a certain scale company, but we're past that. And so really what we did is we kind of rewound. Consensus didn't love us at that moment. I actually remember being at like my daughter's gymnastics class and like sending the text like, sorry, it's not going to work. It was really heartbreaking text to send. And I think, Alex, you might have even asked for feedback on how y'all could have done better. But really, it was all about making sure that we had, RevOps support. We were comparing to other vendors, making sure that we were actually buying the best in class solution. And ultimately, we did get this over the line. And part of the reason why we were able to get it over the line is because our reps were begging for it. Like, I don't think that I had a day since the day we told Consensus it wasn't happening that our reps weren't asking, like, when is Consensus coming? I need it. It was so helpful. And so having a tool that the reps were actually pulling as opposed to us pushing onto our sales team was a huge differentiator for us, and a major reason why we made the decision to proceed.
And we're very thankful for the partnership. That was, I think it's a kind of a case study of just like time, you can't control timing. The fundamentals were so good. But yeah, as you said, you had some other internal politics to get through. Luke, this, you are like channeling me back to, I think it was late 2022 when we did the pilot. I think the reason that you guys had such like reps who on their own like were demanding for this and pulling for licenses is because you did such a good job in like that 3-month pilot, getting them to use a tool. So can you tell us about what your secret sauce is? How do you get sales reps to use a tool?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it starts with storytelling, but sales reps, are resourceful. I'll say that they'll figure out the best, fastest, shortest way to get to the outcome that they want. And when they're presented with a tool or an option, whether it's through prospecting, through demoing, through negotiation, through obviously AI these days, right? The top reps will always find kind of a shortcut into optimizing their outcome. And for Consensus at the time, like I said, lawyers are busy. It's hard to get a hold of them. Oftentimes, you'll cold call into a law firm. They'll say, yeah, I'm interested, but I can't talk now. But what if I send you a video of things that you're interested in? And what if I can personalize it and have that personal touch? So reps kind of got addicted to it, honestly, because they found it a little bit like a cheat code. They could send videos, of the Clio platform late at night, and they would see all the analytics, all the engagement, all the heat maps of what people were interested in. And then they could call that prospect the next morning and say, hey, saw you watch the video last night. Is now a better time to chat? And when you have the conversation, it's more so of a conversation of how do we make this work for my law firm rather than tell me what it is that you do, because baseline, they've been filled in on all of the, the value proposition that Clio can bring. So that was a little bit of a cheat code. And, it was just a superpower that reps could add to their toolkit. And yeah, like Jenny said, they kind of became addicted to it, and they kept kind of building, this groundswell of, activity. And we monitored and measured the usage pretty closely, right? We set up dashboards within Salesforce for 3 months prior compared to like 3 months with Consensus, and even like prior 12 months. We look at quarter over quarter, 1 year to the next to see what the uplift was. But at the end of the day, like to answer your question, the secret sauce is that the software is great, right? Like I would go to team meetings, I would talk about enablement, I would give best practices. But once an AE used it and saw success with it, they wanted to use it again and again. And that really led to, that flywheel moment where, everyone started to pick it up. And then, once we finally implemented it, we got into a lot more interesting use cases, which, I'm sure we'll talk about in terms of like, the automation we built in.
Yeah, of course. So it sounds like the lawyers, I'm getting the lawyers who the salespeople were sending the demos to, actually appreciated being able to experience Clio's product outside of their insane working hours, and that must have helped speed up your deal cycles because they were able
but
to.
Not just lawyers. Like
Okay.
if you think about a law firm, you've got paralegals, you've got billing specialists, you've got, like your front office manager, depending on where you are in the country, like some of these law firms are operating in a very legacy mode. And so, and the lawyer is the decision maker, but they actually have the least amount of influence on a product like ours, because especially for a law firm that has a bit of staff underneath it, the lawyer is not actually the one using the software. It's their paralegals using the software, and lawyers will do anything to keep their paralegals happy. And so we might have sent it to the lawyer, but they're forwarding it to the paralegal, and now we've got a whole multi-threading approach that we can leverage. And so that, I think, offered just a new holistic lens into our deal that would make it a bit meatier and make sure that we were hitting those value propositions at each level.
So you were able to educate more stakeholders.
Definitely.
Fantastic.
100%.
And
yeah,
discover more stakeholders.
Yeah. And just to build on that, like we'll talk about like the actual implementation now, because once we actually went live with Consensus, one of the first things we did was we built out persona-based demo boards, right? We found this is the things that paralegals are interested. This is the thing that office managers are interested. This is the thing that attorneys are interested. This is the thing that managing partners or owners are interested in. And then we serve them up specific content based on what we determined to be their needs. And we would send them different demo boards and get really a 360 view of what different people at the firm were watching. We would do that multi-threading, that account-based selling. And it was really a powerful tool for us to unlock that motion for us.
Yeah. And one important piece about our business that maybe some of you on this call can resonate with is our market isn't super discoverable. So the traditional methods for discovering contacts like ZoomInfo and SalesNav and like that cohort of vendors, it works, but only so much for us. And so every new contact we can discover is really valuable for us. And the reason why they're not discoverable is because they don't always have a LinkedIn. They don't even have a website necessarily. They just don't have the traditional digital footprint that you would expect. And so having Consensus as kind of this like inside spy to help us extract more contacts is really, really valuable to us.
Fantastic. Yeah, I can relate to that. I used to sell to accountants. It was very
Exactly.
similar.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, Luke, you heroically get Consensus in the door, and thank you, Jenny, as well for that. Now you have to prove it. Like you've put a lot into this. You've put your neck on the line. Can you tell me a bit about? And obviously, you already had like salespeople lined up and ready to use a tool. There are typically two pillars towards involved in a successful Consensus implementation: content creation, and then getting salespeople to actually send the content itself. We already talked about salespeople. Tell us more about your content creation strategy. How did you figure out what to send? You mentioned personas, and then how did you actually get people to create the content?
Yeah, it's a great question. So obviously the SEs were kind of the captains of creating the content, and that's really how this whole initiative was sparked. So, talking to the SE leaders, the SEICs, on the webinar, right? I think, the best way to kind of justify it is, what are the things in your day that you talk about the most or you repeat the most that you wish people would just like understand at a basic fundamental level? And how can we automate that and remove that from your day? So like for Clio, it was like, okay, this is how you generate a time entry. This is how you create a bill, right? This is how you share a document, right? So certain things that are like fundamentally easy that you understand that you could do like in your sleep, we want to automate that process. And we started small. We started with one product, which is Clio Manage. But over time, as our adoption evolved and increased, we started rolling this out to our multi-product world. We did Clio Grow, then we ended up doing Clio Payments and Clio Draft, and on and on. And now we support all of our products. So creating the content was something that was obviously owned by SEs, and SEs, hope I'm not generalizing here, but like they love to do side projects or side quests, right? They obviously get on calls, we're the demo masters, we're the technical experts, but they also love to be motivated by learning something new, a new product, right? Like your content creation tool, or how do I, embed my video in a way that's like, allows me to look beautiful on camera, or, the reason I have this mic, I sound good. How do I craft a script that has just like value statements in it, right? How do I only show what's important? And I think there was a lot of unintended benefits of that. Is like maybe the SEs actually got a lot tighter in delivering their value of props because they went through multiple iterations of filming these consensus videos. So it was something that was kind of easy to implement as the SE leader at the time. I think there was a lot of people who wanted to volunteer, wanted to show off what they could do as well, and opportunity to be a bit of a public face for your company, right? At Clio, our videos, our demo boards get distributed quite widely, right? And it has your face on it, and maybe it takes a little bit of bravery to be that person, but the SEs that we have on the team, we're all happy to do so. And then sometimes you get on a call with like a real live prospect, and they're like, "Oh, I recognize you. You're that guy from the video." So that was a little bit of a cool moment, but getting the content created was easy from our perspective. Let's not mistake it though. It was a lot of work. There's a lot of work to craft those scripts, to do revisions, to do edits, to get feedback from the team, go back to the drawing board. So there's a lot of time in the lab kind of working on that. But once we did it a couple times, we got really good at it. And as we continue to release more products, that would serve as a little bit of the tip of the spear, not only to educate our market, but also to educate our account executives. We ended up using Consensus a little bit as an internal enablement tool to, distribute to our global sales team on best practices around, what we would call those 2-minute value videos to deliver, the high impact statements and best practices, quite frankly, around demoing.
And Luke, the other piece that I don't think you were expecting was that our customer success org wanted access to it, right?
Exactly. Yeah, they wanted access as well. Everyone kind of wanted access. So once people found out about it, it kind of spread like wildfire.
Yeah, so I think that's been a balance for us because obviously, like, this is a really valuable tool, but it does require management. It's like any tool, it's only as good as the focus you have on optimizing it. And so we have been trying to balance, like, how do we, make this as kick-ass as it can be for sales, but while also servicing other needs in the business, and like, where does that SE participation end and somebody else pick up the ball? So I think we have an okay strategy there, but would love to hear anybody's ideas if they're developing or implementing this across functions.
Thank you everyone for all the questions. We'll get to them at the end. Luke, I think your side quest label really resonated with the audience. And it's also a segue into like getting into some of the results. So obviously the title, this is what we're hoping to talk about, scaling. And you mentioned that you wanted to help take SEs off of things that are repeatable. Like SEs, like all of our customers always tell us, SEs like to help people. They didn't get involved in this business to be a tour guide and say the same thing every single day. Whether you have numbers or just like some anecdotal evidence, how has Consensus and taking SEs off of some of that repeatable stuff, how has it helped you scale your SE team?
Yeah, it's a good question. So what Jenny mentioned at the top about our go-to-market strategy, and I'll just get into a little more detail now, is we have different sales segments, right? We have, our micro SMB segment, which is around 1 to 4 users. We have our strategic segment, which is 5 to 19, our mid-market segment, 20 plus. We also sell into international markets. So each of these segments has their own particular ROE or rules of engagement on how and when they can leverage SEs. And my job as the SE leader was to balance, how do we manage like the SE resources with the demands of each of these segments? And how can I find a way to essentially offset or offload to make sure that, every quarter I'm not asking Jenny to hire more people, although we did. But essentially, we saw Consensus as a tool to, there's there was a lot of benefits, but one was to take SEs off of those harbor cruise or harbor tour demos that everyone's been through that are kind of aimless and, oh, what are you interested? Do you like that? So we were able to get that out in front of them. But as our adoption of consensus went on, what we ended up doing was we actually did an exercise to look more into, okay, so what are the top things that just SEs focus on a lot? Like what do we repeat? Not just the account executives, but what do the SEs repeat? So I'll give one example. When you're making a decision to onboard onto Clio, one of the main things that you need to consider as a law firm is, how do I migrate my data from my existing system onto Clio? And that's like a huge area where the SEs get tapped into, and it's a huge use of our time, essentially. That's typically the number one reason that we get involved in deals, is to talk about like migration scoping and a migration pathway. So maybe after a couple quarters of implementing consensus, what we did is we actually built videos on a pathway from the top 10 incumbents or competitors of ours back to Clio. How do you migrate? What data comes over? How do you do it? How do you migrate your documents? How do you migrate your financials? How do you get set up? And what that was able to do was just to create a huge time gap and free up our time so that SEs can get on calls to have conversations that were more, real life, dynamic, how do I do this workflow, or how do I solve for X problem, rather than something that in our world was pretty general, like migrating data from one system to the other. We could talk about it till we're blue in the face, but it's pretty clear. And we built those videos, and that was able to offset a lot of our time so that we could get on calls and do other value add activities.
Yeah, I think like I'll tell you that this is Luke's talking very specifically about consensus, and I think there was a question in the chat around KPIs. So a couple other things, like from my perspective, that we were monitoring and that mattered. Like the SEs obviously wanted to automate the like low value mundane tasks, but what I wanted to see was our deal velocity improving? Were we able to extract more contacts? Conversion rate. We have a really good conversion rate here. So I think that was important. But for us, it was like, actually, like, how do we close more of these faster? And then how do we augment resourcing? And so in all of those things, in the POC that we did with consensus, proved true. And we legit did an A/B test where we gave the tool to some people and we didn't give the tool to other people. And it was really obvious the impact had. So I think for anybody on this call thinking about evaluating or implementing consensus, it's really important to ring fence some very specific KPIs that you're looking to influence, and make sure that you've got a way to measure and monitor those to demonstrate value and ROI. There was something else I was going to say. Oh, the other thing I was going to say is, like, consensus is one piece of the puzzle for us. At the same time, our solutions engineers had a separate project going called the Golden Demo Account. And I think everybody on this call really can feel the pain that is demo accounts. And, maybe there's somebody on here that's going to try and sell us like a demo automation tool, but or a POC tool. But we don't have that. And we also didn't have any standardized demo environments for our AEs. And so one of the other side projects that happened at around the same time as we implemented these standard demo templates so that every single rep on the team would have a demo environment that showed a practice area with like cases built in and time already tracked. And like, they weren't just showing a shell of an account or an account that said like test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or, things that like lawyers don't resonate with. And so that Golden Demo Account environment paired with consensus allowed for more continuity at all points of the funnel, like from lead to opportunity through that discovery phase all the way to close. And I would say in general, we're thinking about how we can streamline that demo experience and show our product in a way that is going to prescribe to adult learning principles where, they can actually get their hands on something and see how it's going to impact their firm versus like, I mean, we do white papers, we do all the other things, but I think these are the more meaningful touch points that we have with our prospects.
Awesome. We're getting a lot of questions, so I think I'm going to ask you guys 2 more and then get to the questions in the chat. So first, Jenny, when I first started working with Luke, he had a different title. Can you tell me a bit, correlation is not causation, but can you tell me a bit about like what the effect of consensus was on Luke's title change, and also tell us about that title change?
Yeah, definitely. So when I started with Clio 3 years ago, I think Luke's his title was like manager of solutions engineering. He had identified the need for SEs. He had started the SE team. A lot of our SEs internally were like former AEs that came into the SE role. I'm not sure that we had done a ton of external hiring directly into this team. So it was like a high functioning team, but like, it was a bit unstructured and a bit, like I mentioned earlier, Wild West. And so I really tasked Luke with bringing structure into this team, and how does he think about resourcing, and how do we elevate the strategy, especially considering how much we were expecting to grow and how much we did grow. And I think that with some guidance and some structure, Luke started to think creatively about his options. Consensus obviously came into play. He really lobbied for Consensus. Even though we had the false start, he was able to get it over the line and demonstrate value. And I think Consensus was one example where he was able to elevate his brand in the business and go from being like this contributor that was just like full execution to a balance of strategist and execution. And I really think Consensus helped give him a platform that he might not have had otherwise, because he could demonstrate like those very clear KPIs and how they were being inflected by this. And so fast forward a couple months ago, my boss, who's our COO, and I are trying to figure out who's going to be our general manager of Canada. Like I mentioned earlier, we're a Canadian company, but ironically, we have underinvested in the market. And so we wanted to install a dedicated leader that would be able to really transform and grow our Canadian market. So my boss was like, well, what about Luke? He would be great at this. And I think it was because of some of the groundwork he had laid with Consensus that even kind of got him on the map for Ronnie and I to have that conversation. And as soon as he said it, was obvious. Like, we know he can execute. We know he's data driven. We know that he can pull different stakeholders cross-functionally together to drive a plan forward. And that's exactly what this GM role does. So I don't think that's the only reason, but it was certainly one of the inputs into our evaluation process.
Awesome. Well, congratulations, Luke. From my perspective, I've met with you, for a while there, like every week. It wasn't, Consensus is a great platform, of course, but Luke, like, necessary to successful Consensus implementation and scaling is a Luke. A champion who's willing to like doggedly make sure that all the little details are accounted for, and like you did that, so congratulations.
And one other thing I'll say is evaluating tools can be really scary, especially if you're new to it, because if it doesn't work, like, you look like an idiot. And I realize that that's probably the reason why most vendors, and all of us feel this, right? Why people don't buy or convert, it's because there's indecision or there's trepidation on the buyer's part. And so my recommendation, if you are new to evaluating vendors, and if Consensus happens to be the vendor you're evaluating, is talk to somebody who's done it before and build that really strong framework so that you can have conviction in your recommendation and it is backed by data. As leaders, especially right now, we are all very, or I say, at least in my opinion, we're being more conservative on just like adding to the tool stack. And so thinking about, like, do you bring something in new? Do you optimize something that might be existing? Or do you build something? I think somebody asked, like, why wouldn't you just build this? And I think those are all valid questions. And depending on your environment, like, you have to go through that exercise in order to make sure you were making the right decision and making the right recommendation.
100%.
So last question for me. This is all about scaling. We have a lot of other detailed questions we would have loved to get to, but you guys have so much to say, so thank you. If you were to get on the phone with, let's say, a chief revenue officer of a company that is the size Clio was, 3 years ago when you bought Consensus, or 2 years ago. And they were to say, how is Consensus like? I'm not sure if I believe this hype. Like, how is Consensus like? What does it actually do? How are they going to help me scale my team? And you get to give them a pretty succinct answer. I hate to put you in the spot, but what would you say?
Luke, you want to take it?
Yeah, I mean, I think this ties into what I wanted to get to before, which is the way that Consensus has been able to scale our team is through our distribution and our sheer volume. So without getting too much into the weeds, because Consensus is truly an enterprise platform and you've built integrations with other best-in-class enterprise applications such as Salesforce, SalesLoft, Chili Piper, what we've been able to do in our usage of Consensus is to automate the sending of a demo board to every single prospect that comes into our funnel. So essentially, every time an XDR books a meeting, we automatically send a email saying, hey, I'm looking forward to your demo on Friday at 12:30. In the meantime, if you want to get to learn the product, click on this link. It provides one of those kind of qualifying questions. What's your persona? And it immediately solves the problem of, hey, I'm interested in your product. I want to see it, because how many times do a prospect get into a funnel? You submit a demo request, you talk to an SDR, they qualify you. Okay, when does account executive free? And then you kind of just wait. So this really solves the need for getting content in front of you right away. And we don't have to rely on our account executives to necessarily send out the demo boards, but the automation ensures that hundreds, if not thousands, of demo boards are sent out every single month. And that's provided us the opportunity to really scale the program.
Thank you, Luke. I totally forgot to ask you to talk about one of the most impressive things you guys did, which was like come up with this innovative way of having demo boards sent out to every single person who books a meeting. And because you guys are exploding and you do SMB, there's a lot of meetings. And so time is of the essence, and that automation has saved you so much. So.
Yeah, it saves like that first 5 minutes of a call where you're like, what are you interested in? How can we focus this conversation? It's like, actually, I see that you are interested in billing, in timekeeping, and in AI. And like, you know what, we're going to actually spend our 45 minutes today on those topics because that's obviously what you care about. So it helps us save time and make these conversations more effective.
Jenny, do you want to answer? Or do you want to get to questions?
I think let's get to questions.
Great. So there were a couple of questions about like practically what your Consensus login looks like. So can you tell us a bit about what kind of what aspects of Consensus you use?
So I might not be familiar with the nomenclature anymore, but so we use demo boards. Like that's the main one, like the video usage of it. I think we've tested, we played around with tours, and I know there's a new one that you guys have acquired as you go multi-product, but we're on the original. Is it just called demo boards? Is there a certain name for it?
Sales/pre-sales use case. I'm not sure what I think the audience seems to have some understanding of the actual product names, but they don't use simulations or tours. They use our traditional videos, sales, pre-sales use case, and they don't use marketing.
Yeah. I'm kidding.
Sounds like an upsell opportunity.
Tell us about your demo library. There's a couple of questions about that. Obviously, like you said, you started off with like the obvious areas of needs, and you developed into doing like end of funnel things that weren't even demos per se, they were migrations. But how do you keep it tight? And you're also moving into a multi-product world. How do you account for that?
Yeah, I mean, data hygiene and data governance were definitely key to spinning this up, and something I spent a lot of time kind of focusing on before we created all the content, because the worst thing that can happen in a content management system is for it to become completely unruly and unsearchable, and you can't navigate it. So we built a pretty structured folders format, and we obviously work closely with our CSM at Consensus to do that. What we ended up doing was we built certain folders by product. So each of our 8 products has its own folder. And then we got a little more specialized as we started building more content for our specific segments that we sell into. So we built, specific content for mid-market, or for our EMEA team, or for our APAC team. Another great thing about Consensus is your Gmail plugin. I think it's called Consensus Snap, which allows you to search through the library really quickly. So that was a huge win. So we ended up actually having most of our reps use just the plugin rather than logging into the backend to create demo boards. And we found that to be a lot more of a seamless kind of experience for them. And also we saw an uptick in usage once we started recommending that and kind of shutting off the actual using it from the backend from the actual Consensus webpage. Apologies if you don't prefer that.
But dealer's choice, I think. Really quick, how many SEs roughly do you guys have?
16.
Today, there's how many ICs?
16, I think.
16 ICs and three managers.
And you're supporting how many salespeople?
A few hundred.
Wow, that's a pretty impactful ratio.
Yeah, I mean, our ratio definitely becomes tighter as we move up market, but our biggest team is that like 1 to 4 space, that micro SMB, high velocity, high volume space. And so we really we empower our AEs in that segment to run their own demos, to have those conversations and really only pull the SE in on super complex deals. And so I'd actually say in that down market space, the SE is almost a hybrid enablement partner to support deals at scale. And obviously that's where Consensus is one of the biggest impacts in our business.
That's that benchmark is always a good one to note. There's a lot of documentations of Consensus clients able to get more out of their SEs and like have that ratio of SEs to sales increase. Hello, Beth Ann. Good to see you here. Beth Ann says, Luke, yeah, pre-sales like side quests, but of course, how do you carve out time for side quests when you're really busy? And the reason you bought Consensus is because you're busy.
It's a good question, but I mean, I guess it all comes down to your individual experience and leadership philosophy. So at the end of the day, like I'm a big believer in time management and organization. So building out the Consensus content was a priority for the entire sales org. So I would just ensure that our reps would carve out 2-hour time blocks, a couple of weeks in advance, and put that time block in. And obviously, if there's a meeting that had high revenue potential, a rep could block over it, but it was really like beginning of day or end of day time blocks, 2-hour time blocks to carve that out. And that seems to work well for us.
Fantastic. I'm just going to take the questions from the chat here. In terms of teams that have adopted Consensus, where do you find the best value success? Business development, new business, or account management? Obviously, add your own there if you'd like.
I think it is probably like from a business perspective, most valuable in our down market segment, that handoff between the BDR and SDR and our SMB rep. I think that's probably where we've seen like the biggest, ROI. That being said, like our upmarket teams are also using it and kind of weaving it in throughout their discovery process. So I think it's a segmented approach, as Luke mentioned earlier. And we're definitely not having a one size fits all methodology here. We're very intentional about how we leverage it in those various segments.
Yeah, and one thing to add is that our customer sales team is also leveraging it quite highly these days as they go back into our base and cross-sell new products. They find a lot of value, like I said, not only in the enablement piece, but they handle our upgrades as well. So they've helped to create kind of some more tailored or specific content, and they've been big adopters of it as well.
Fantastic. Curious how you guys are going to answer this. So someone asked basically the build versus buy question. Like, did you think about building your own tool?
I mean, look, I'll tell you how I think about that, and then Luke, you can share because you're closer to this. But I think it's totally appropriate to talk about building something, not just around this particular use case, but anytime you're trying to optimize or enhance your go-to-market motion. It just depends on who your market is, what your internal resources look like, and what other priorities are being balanced at that time. And for us, it just made sense to leverage our internal resources to install a tool and help us optimize a tool versus build this. And I don't actually think that's where we want our resources going. Like, we want our internal resources focused on more high value tasks and more customer centric tasks. And this was, by the time we proved it out, a no brainer.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, also just the suite of features that you guys offered and the integrations and the security, like, obviously your video editing software was key, and the analytics. And I'd say, just as it relates to that question, at least like the frontline experience wasn't really build versus buy. It was like Consensus versus like Vidyard. All these reps would have like free Vidyard licenses, and they'd be making these videos, exact same videos that we'd make on Consensus, and they were using Vidyard. And I was like, why are you using Vidyard? You're not getting any of the analytics. You're not getting any of the insight. They're not sharing with other people. You're not, working that account properly. And it was really just changing that habit. So, there's Vidyard, there's Loom, there's a lot of tools that reps probably use for free. And I was like, we are piloting Consensus. We have implemented Consensus, like use Consensus. And I think, after a few months, it finally resonated with them.
Yeah. And also, given our volume, at least my position on this is I don't want to pull the autonomy of the sales team. I want to give them that autonomy to like be them, but I also want to govern the content that is being sent to our prospects and customers. And I want to make sure that our product marketing team has seen it and blessed it. I want to make sure that it's aligned to our brand messaging, the way that we are trying to position certain products in the market. And I don't always trust my sales team that they're going to have all that context to be able to do it as well as this. And so centralizing this and like our email cadences and all that is a really important part of our scale.
Very well said. Thank you. Yeah. And George, if you have any more specific questions about that, we've dealt with that obviously a lot across other very large customers who have asked the same question. We have a lot of stories there about build versus buy. Probably like anyone in tech. So we're going right to the buzzer here, guys. We have 2 more questions. To thank you, audience, for being so patient and being so engaged. Art asked, how has access to the buyer's journey via Consensus helped for post-sale support and driving consumption or renewal? Why is it so crucial to capture info from hello to commission/renewal?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the handoff between sales and CS is obviously one of the most important and crucial integrations that any company can have, because, an account executive can sell a deal, but until software is implemented and the customer sees time to value, it doesn't really matter. And, we're obviously optimizing the sales funnel, and, our partners on the other side of the business are handling everything post-sale. We have yet to implement Consensus on the CS side of the org. I think there might be some conversations happening there, but I think there's a lot of innovative ways in which, once you make a purchase, you understand, okay, this is where I want to focus my time. This is how I want to get enablement on the things that I need. But that's like a huge priority of our business is that handoff and really ensuring that customers get onboarded in a timely manner, and they have, sometimes pre-populated demo accounts. We've really reimagined how we kind of launch new customers successfully. And I think that's all part of kind of the strategy that we've taken to be very customer focused, prospect centric. And truly, one thing I didn't mention throughout this hour is, I always just view Consensus as just like a really modern way of selling, right? Like when I'm a buyer, this is how I want to be interacting and engaged with. Like, I want to see these videos on demand. I want to watch it. I want to pick what I'm interested in. I want to drive the conversation. I want to be able to pause, like rewind, go back and forth. So using these just like very innovative modern tools just made me feel at ease in using Consensus. And I think our lawyers appreciate that. As it comes to post-sale, we haven't implemented that yet today, but we're definitely thinking about that.
Fantastic. Well, Jenny and Luke, I think we could talk for a long, long time. You have so much wisdom to share. So thank you for the audience for being so patient. And thank you, Jenny and Luke. I wish we had more time, but here we are.
Thank you for having us. And if y'all have any questions, Luke and I are easy to get to, so feel free to reach out on LinkedIn, and we're happy to be resources for all of y'all.
Certainly. Thank you, Consensus team.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Jenny, Luke, thank you for sharing your story and your experience. It was really great. Alex, thank you for leading such a wonderful conversation. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. We hope you enjoyed the session, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. So take care, everyone.